Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dad's Turn to Talk. My name is Bob, and this is our Halloween edition. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We also have all of the topics time-stamped in the description below, so if there's something specific you want to go to, you can go ahead and jump ahead to that. Right now, I want to go ahead and introduce my co-hosts, and one of them's in costume, and I'll get mine on here in a moment. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
Josh, I'm Batman.
God.
What's going on? I'm doing great. Just, giving you guys a little preview of what'll be tomorrow night for a Halloween night with the family. I'm going to be Batman. We have a very fun night, hopefully, planned ahead. So good to be with you guys.
All right. And Derek, how are you doing tonight?
Other than that penis with a little mask on at the top corner there, I'm doing fine.
Love you too, Derek. Mwah.
Top 5 Halloween candies. Go.
Oh, look at that. Oh, wow.
So this is my costume for tomorrow, but obviously because of how muffled it is, I do not want to leave this on the whole time, but this is what I'm going to be wearing tomorrow.
God, you look so much better like that, Bob. Good God.
I thought you might say
that. All right, I'm taking this off now.
So, it's a much better hairstyle.
That is true.
You just said 5 top candies for tomorrow. For Halloween, Derek. Kit Kat, Snickers. I like candy corn. Let me see. That's 3. Hershey's and Twix. What about you?
All that was fine except for candy corn.
I knew it. What's yours?
No, we need to talk about candy corn. All the candy corn that was ever made on this earth was made in 1912. So whatever you're eating right now.
Bob, do you like candy corn?
That's all right. I'm not a hater of it, but I don't like it. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, it's good to have you on for this Halloween edition, and hopefully we got something special planned for y'all here in a little bit. One thing about Halloween is this is a time where we love to ask the question,
what's your favorite scary movie?
And there's nothing scarier for Josh than to recap our fantasy scores from weekend.
Guys, I really gotta go. I'm sorry.
Nope, you'll sit right there and take the dread.
Let me get this uploaded here.
Oh, I bet he had it notarized too.
So, for those that remember last week, unfortunately, Josh did beat Derek.
You bunch of losers!
That gets better and better every week. I'm just gonna.
It does. I love that. But this week, however, turned out a lot different, and things didn't go too well for Josh and Derek. So, just getting the slides loaded up here. Josh, how do you think you did this week?
Oh, I did horrible this week. I did atrocious. I did very, very bad.
Tell me more.
Good. You know what? There's actually a good way to describe your week, Josh. So we are now getting into week 8 here, and we are starting off with our loser, who not only lost, but lost bad. Josh, you went with Jared Goff, who got you 15.5 points. Kareem Hunt, 13.3. Your best play was Joe Mixon at 26.4. The rest of your lineup laid an absolute egg. DeAndre Hopkins, 4.9. Amari Cooper, 1.3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8.7. Cole Kmet, 4.4.
Stop with the laughing.
Dawson Knox, 7.0. The Seahawks at 2 points. Your total score was 83.5. Final verdict. Where is everybody?
All I can say is one thing. Woo!
All right. Well, Josh.
Let this be a lesson to you, Josh. Let this be a lesson. So the next time you feel like getting arrogant again, You remember this feeling because you're gonna be back here.
Yeah, Josh. There's only one thing I can say to you. There's only one thing I can say to you, Josh.
You're not gonna have your mommies run behind you anymore and wipe your little tushes.
So now we'll get into Derek. Derek, I want to point out that you finished almost 50 points. No, almost 60 points higher than Josh.
He still lost. He's still a loser.
Hold on, but that was a pretty big distance between the two of you.
He still lost.
Derek, I
don't
like
care.
your play.
Beat the snot out of you. That means more to me than anything.
I like your play.
Derek. I give up.
Josh, shut up. I'm going through the lineup. Jeez.
Nobody cares, Bob.
Good Lord, Josh. See, last week he's sitting there going, nothing's going to bother me. Nothing. And now he can't shut up. All right. So, Derek, I got to say, I was impressed with your play going with Bo Nix. He got you almost 30 points. Brees Hall was a bit of a disappointment.
That made me mad.
Yeah. I believe this was JJ Taylor, wasn't it? He's a backup running back for Houston. Didn't get any carries or anything. I know you kind of picked him just because you needed some money. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a disappointment. Garrett Wilson did fine. Sterling Shepard was a little bit of disappointment. Kate Otten did really well for you, 29.1. James Cook, also a great play, 31.3. The Chiefs defense, 8 points. Your total score was 140.86. Final verdict, I'm so confused. And I can understand why you're confused. It is confusing that you could put up 140 points and still lose. And the reason why that happened is because we get to our champ. And the champ this week with what played. First off, I've been telling you guys that it was time for Jameis Winston, that it was Jameis Winston season. And so I went with Jameis Winston. 27.56. Kareem Hunt, 13.3. Achan for Miami, I went with 26.7. I've just figured he had way too much upside and he was too cheap to not play him. Drake London was a bit of a letdown for me. Tyreek Hill was also a letdown, but Cedric Tillman really came through for me with 28.9 points. David Njoku, 17.1. Javonte Williams was a bit of a letdown. I went with the Broncos defense, got me 7 points. My final score was 150.36. Final verdict, I have the power.
Oh, it's been a while since we've had that reference.
Yeah, we had it.
So, our leaderboard, Josh and I are tied at 3 apiece, and Derek, you have 2. So it's still anybody's game as we go into week 9. So that is our fantasy recap for week 8. So again, just to recap what happened week 8, Josh got whipped.
Who's tied for first? You and I. So again, nobody cares week to week right now. Yeah, keep showing it. Everyone's going to side with me.
No one's going to side with you.
No one's. You know what, Derek? Where are you? A lawyer? You're going to side with you. I give up.
You see, if you hadn't started this week 1, Josh, we would just be recapping our scores and having a good time. But you know, this is a good time. But you,
there's no proof.
So anyway, let's go ahead and move to our next topic for the night. Well, actually, technically, our first topic, and we are going to continue talking about the Penguins. That's right, folks. The Penguin released another episode, released episode 6. This was once again a great episode, and I'm going to let you two go ahead and talk about it to start. Derek, let's start with you. What did you think of episode 6?
Again, tremendous. Every episode has been.
You know what? Hold on real quick before you get into it.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
We have to throw that out there.
Oh, God, how could we forget?
I don't know.
Tremendous episode. And the only thing that I could think, kind of around the halfway point, is that Bob might have this right about how this ends. That's what I thought. That's because didn't Bob you say it was going to end with basically Maroney getting iced? Like you think
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that, and this is all based on a rumor. The rumor is that Sophia Falcone is going to have a big role in the Batman Part 2. We already know Colin Farrell's supposed to be in it. So if that rumor is true, and again, this is just rumor, because as far as I know, they haven't started filming. I know they're still working on a script. So this could just be rumor. But I'm thinking, based on that rumor, that Maroney's going to get it. You're going to end up with Penguin kind of taking his place, and you're going to have the two warring factions between Sophia and Penguin leading into the Batman 2.
I think this episode set that up a lot. I think this is the one. Because number one, remember how we talked last week about Penguin is endearing?
Yes.
Yeah, not so much. That ruthless side really came out, didn't it?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So that was the first part. The second part is that because he, in essence, killed Sal's wife and son, all that leaves is Maroney left. And so, and I'm sure Maroney's going to try to come after him, but I think that the Penguin's just going to be too smart about all this and finish the job with the Maroney side. And then, you're right, Bob, that would be the perfect segue to then lead that off into him and Sophia clashing again in the Batman 2. It set it up very nicely. I think that the way that you explained it, how we're moving forward here, it was a good episode for that to happen. All the chess pieces, I think, are in play for that to actually go down.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And again, I'm just basing that on a rumor, and you might be onto something there, especially where you see Penguin at the end of the episode kind of uniting everybody to go up against Maroney and Sophia. Like he's literally combining all the smaller crime families together and saying, hey, we can't take them on one by one or one on one, but if all of us come together, we're stronger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that he's kind of setting himself up there to kind of head that up. And then of course, Oz, he's going to kind of backstab them all. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love.
And they even said that, he's got a reputation for backstabbing everybody.
Yeah, sure does. I loved the little things that they do in this show too. When Winter shows up in Gotham, because things are about to get very cold, and that was just a nice touch, a nice setup there too.
How about that skyline, Derek, of Gotham when they pointed it out? Did you see that? I thought of you because I thought it was a really cool scene.
That's why I love the show so much too, because Gotham has stayed a character in every single episode.
Yeah.
Episode 4 was a little bit of a throwback, and that's when Arkham became its own character. But for the most part, Gotham has, stayed the course.
That's still my favorite episode. The Arkham.
It's hard not that you might be. It would be. How do I phrase this?
It's my favorite. I'll say that.
Is it your favorite one? Yeah. Okay.
So far, it's my favorite.
Yeah, I think that it's a tie between. Probably a tie between 3 and 4 for me right now. I get why 4 would be everybody's favorite here because it's very, very good.
What was 3?
Oh God, 3 was Bliss. That was where Bliss got created.
That was a good episode too. Yeah.
Yeah.
They find out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably a tie for me between those two, but 4, hands down, is just brilliant. But this is great too. I think that we are on a collision course to Bob's proposal. I see it happening now. Yeah.
All right.
I loved it.
Anything else, Derek, for the moment?
No. All good.
All right, Josh, why don't you tell us what you...
I love the episode. I thought it was a great episode. Yeah, Bob could be right. We could have that, showdown with, at the end with Maroney getting killed. Um, Interesting with, I told Bob the other day, um, when we had, what's her name? Oh, Dodgers won. Dodgers just won the World Series.
All right.
Nice. Perfect. My daughter just yelled, Dodgers won. Who would have thought, Bob, huh? All those years.
They beat the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
You bunch of losers!
That's so good. It's so
You know,
good.
I asked that question just to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Of course. I figured.
because it fits.
Anyway, when what's her name? When Sophia and the doctor from Arkham, like he's butt naked practically. I was like, oh wow, okay. There we
Still
go.
had his pants on. I think they were around his ankles.
I thought the scene with Oz and his mother was very unique
Yeah.
and very well thought out.
Okay, which scene with him and his mother?
When she says, when my mind starts to go, I want you to take care of me.
Yeah, take care of me. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, no, Ma, no. And she's like, look, I want my dignity.
Yeah.
I'm not going to know any better.
That got very real very quickly.
Yes. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the part with two parts with Vic, and was the other guy Vincent? Was that his name who he shot in the neck?
I don't remember his name, to be honest with
I
you.
can't remember his name.
That way I had to turn away a little. I was like, oh wow. And then when he and then when Oz hugged him, I was like, oh wow, okay. It's funny because that specific part with Oz, I thought about what Derek has said repeatedly for the last 5-6 weeks. He's the protagonist in this show. Even though
be the hero.
Penguin is the antagonist. It just something about it. You just felt for Oz and like the way he was almost like a father figure to Vic.
But you know what, though? I didn't interpret it that way.
You didn't?
No. Okay, look. Yes, maybe somewhat being a father figure, but he's not exactly being like a good father figure or anything like that here. In fact, he's giving him more advice that, hey, it's just going to, like, think of what he tells him. He's like, it gets easier. That's what he tells him. So he basically tells him, you're going to kill again. You're going to murder more people. He's basically encouraging it. He's like, you're in this life. If you watch the behind the scenes stuff, they even say it was him basically saying, welcome to this life. You're going to murder again. You're good.
No, I get that. I absolutely get that. But I feel he's like a father figure to Vic.
No, I get what you're saying. I don't even think of it more as a father figure.
He's just trying to be a kind guy for doing bad things.
That's what I think too, because I think he does see potential in him. But let's face it, he wouldn't keep this kid around if he didn't think that he needed him for something. Because the Penguin always has an ulterior motive here.
And then the final thing that I want to just say about that, sorry, my phone is lighting up because of the Dodgers, but I'm waiting on something else. When Vic is hugging Penguin's mother for some reason, I thought she was going to pass away in his arms for some reason. It didn't happen. I don't know. I just see something like that could happen to really drive Penguin over the edge, even though Bob told me earlier, no, he's already over the edge. It's the point of no return. Excuse me.
It could always get worse.
Yeah, it can get worse, but he's already full on bag. I mean, think about that. Yeah. He knew Sophia was innocent, and he let her rot in Arkham. Why? Because he advanced.
Yeah,
and he even told her in your other episode, Derek Bliss. He even told her, "I'm not sorry for the things that I got."
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So, what did you think of the episode, Bob?
I liked the episode as a whole. There's only one scene that I had a little bit of an issue with, and Josh is waiting for me to say it. That's why he's asking.
Let's have a conversation here.
Really, Josh? Look at him. He's like, like he's ready for it. Okay, so the issue that I had, and I'm not the only one who thought this,
course
is that
not.
scene. Really, Josh? Are you gonna let me talk?
Go ahead.
All right. No, you know what? Now I don't want to. So anyway, the scene that I had a little bit of an issue with is the scene where Sophia is talking with Eve, and the reason why I felt that way is when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, they had a very specific intention, and I think the scene itself comes off as like a girl boss moment in certain parts of the scene. Now, I didn't think that it was dumb, like I've seen some other people say. I thought it was still a good scene. At the end of the day, she still gets the information she needs about Oz's location from Eve. So because of that, it was an important scene. But for me personally, they even say in the behind the scenes stuff that it was a long scene. It was written as a long scene. I think they could have cut a few minutes off the scene. And I think at the end of the scene, as soon as Eve said he's at Crown Point, because Sophia got her to give the information, I think it would have been better if Sophia had played her a little bit and got the information from her. And then as soon as she said where she was, then Sophia turned around and shoot her. That's what I thought should have happened. And I think that would have been like a moment like that in the scene that would have just kind of capped it off. And it would have been something else that was taken away from Oz. And so I think that would have been more impactful than instead of the way that they did it. So that's the only thing that I had. But other than that, and it's not that I even hated the scene, because I think they both give a great acting performance in the scene, both actresses. It's just that to me was the one weak link of the episode. But the episode as a whole was really, really good. I love the end scene. Well, the end scene where Sophia's in the apartment and she sees Vic dancing with the mother. I thought that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, that was
You're
good.
just thinking to yourself, oh my God, all hell's going to break loose from this. And then the scene where Oz is talking to all the other crime bosses, and he starts it off by giving them all a beer, and they're all like, what's this? He's like, refreshments, you know?
Refreshments. So did you just think the scene was too long between those two?
I did. I think I would have cut about 2 to 3 minutes off of it. And like I said, they even say in the behind the scenes stuff that it was written to be a long scene.
Yeah.
That she's walking around the room, Sophia, the way she does to take up some time because of the way it's written on the page. So I would have cut a couple of minutes off of it. And I think that would have helped the scene a little bit. And like I said, the way I would have ended it is as soon as she gained Eve's trust by saying, look, I'm not the hangman. Oz screwed you over. He lied to you. That made Eve turn around and become vulnerable and say, okay, well, maybe Oz isn't who he's set himself up to be. And she gives Sophia the information, trusting that she will do something with it, only to turn around and get shot at that point after she had walked away. So she's thinking, okay, I'm in the clear. He's not going to shoot me with this. And then all of a sudden she gives up the information, and then bam. I think that would have made.
Josh and I actually talked about this, though. We thought that was going to happen, actually, didn't we? We both said,
and I think it should have.
Yeah, we thought she was going to get iced.
Hold on, Bob. Can you explain to our viewers what is girl boss? Like, what is that term? Because Derek and I talked about that earlier. What is girl boss?
Best way to describe it: Avengers Endgame. That scene with all of the ladies coming together at that moment, they all happen to be there at the same time for the same moment. That is a girl boss moment. And the way they play it off at certain points in the scene, it's made. They even say, like I say in the behind the scenes, that the intent was that we are two women, all we have is each other, and I think that was played up that moment. It came off a little bit as a girl boss moment. That's my opinion. Now, do I think it was a bad scene? No. But that's just what I thought. And I love how Josh is all offended by it.
I'm not offended at all. I just don't agree.
He is. I told him what I thought on the phone. And he's like, no, no.
And I said I did not see it like that. Maybe Derek, did you see it like that? I didn't see it.
I gotta say, like, I honestly thought that kind of added that dynamic kind of added to the scene.
Yeah,
I do think there's something to be said about Bob saying it was long, and that was a long scene.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
I think you could have cut a couple of minutes off of it. And like I said, I saw some people were saying that it was dumb. It was, just a girl boss scene. I had others say that it was unnecessary. I think it was necessary because I do think that that's important that Sophia got the information. But the biggest thing that I had with the scene is I would have cut a couple of minutes off of it.
Yeah, I think
2 to 3 minutes off.
Josh, do you agree? Like that? It did go too long.
I would say it was a little long, but it didn't bother me.
Okay,
it didn't bother me. I didn't sit there and say, "Oh my god, this scene."
I actually thought it added to that. Plus, let's keep in mind there could still be a murder here. Like, this may not be totally done.
Well, no, Bob
the problem is, I don't think the murder at this point is going to be Sophia killing Eve. And after seeing the way it played out, I think Oz is going to kill her.
Well,
I think he's going to find out that she gave up the information, and I think he's going to kill her now. Unless she runs and he doesn't find her.
I want to end this. I'm getting all antsy. I want to see what happens here. Dang it.
What do we have? 2 more weeks?
2. That's it.
Yeah, we got 2 more.
That's crazy. And then we don't have anything until the Batman part 2, right? Batman 2?
Yeah, that's it. Well, for now.
Well, anything from this universe.
Yeah.
I mean, because you got to keep in mind, we got the James Gunn universe that's going.
Right.
Well, that brings up a question too. This whole series is supposed to be a 3-parter, right? These Batmans.
From my understanding, Matt Reeves has said he sees this as being a trilogy.
Okay.
And of course, he's got the spin-off stuff that takes place within the world that ties into the trilogy of films.
Sure.
And that's, but his mentality, from my understanding, was that Batman would be that his story would be specifically for the films.
And Matt Reeves is doing a great job with all of this. No, I mean, I'm not complaining here, but the question is, when does James Gunn get his hands on Batman? And when does he get to start rolling with it?
Yeah.
Or does Superman have to rock it so hard first that then he gets to fix it?
Here's what I think, because here's what we know about the James Gunn universe. We know Creature Commandos is supposed to be coming out first.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Then Superman's supposed to come out. I think Lanterns is supposed to be one of the next projects.
Yeah.
After that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's supposed to be a movie on the Authority, and I think Supergirl is supposed to come out because they're already talking about filming is supposed to begin on Supergirl Hill pretty soon.
Really
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see Supergirl coming.
Yeah, Supergirl is going to be played by the actress who played young Rhaenyra in the House of the Dragon.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, so young Rhaenyra is supposed to be playing.
That could be very
Supergirl.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
And then we know Peacemaker 2 is season 2 is coming out. So,
right.
But I don't even know how that's going to tie in because that's still supposed to tie in with season 1. But I think he wants to fit it into his universe as well. So I don't know how they're going to make that work. Unless they kind of Deadpool it.
It sounds basically like James Gunn and Batman aren't going to meet for quite some time, which is probably good.
My guess is the soonest we would get Brave and the Bold, which is what the Batman story that he wants to work on.
Yeah.
My guess is that wouldn't be until maybe 2027, 2028.
I was going to say, I'm thinking 2028.
My guess is maybe start working on it in 2026 and it comes out 2027, even into 2028.
Yeah, I think the later side is probably much more realistic with all that.
It's a lot of moving puzzles, moving parts to the puzzle. We don't
know.
And
then it gets back to Bob's point. he has to rock it with Superman. If
Right.
this doesn't work, none of that other stuff does.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Superman, a lot is riding on that. If that is not a success, then the rest of it doesn't work. It's just not going to hit. The rest of it is dead on arrival.
Yep. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying that. We're all going to see it. We know that. I'm just saying that has to be the whole run.
Do you think it'll be a success? Do you think, are you, based on his track record, are you guys feeling, confident about this? Are you feeling indifferent about it? What's your
Let me
opinion?
see a trailer first. And then I'll be able to.
I know he's working on the trailer.
What's your opinion, Bob? Cautiously.
I agree with Derek. Show me a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see a trailer because I do think that I do think that there's so much riding on it, and DC has burned a lot of people in its shared universe that I think James Gunn is going to get some goodwill, but how much, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to see how much that is, but a lot is going to be based on that trailer. If that trailer comes out and it looks dumb, then that's really going to hurt it off the bat. It needs to be a good trailer. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be like, a top 5 all-time greatest trailer or anything, but it needs to be a solid trailer, and it needs to feel like Superman.
It needs to show you why you want to go. It needs to show you why you should get up and go to the theater, even though we're all going to do it anyway. Prove why people should.
I'm curious. You're right about the trailer. I don't think we can say anything until that trailer comes out. But like, there are times, Bob, you watch something, the first trailer, and you don't like it, and then the second trailer comes out, and you're like, "Oh, heads, Superman and Lois."
I mean, that's true. That could happen.
So I don't know.
We're all going to see it anyway.
We're going to see it. Like, that's not, and it's probably going to make money.
Yeah, it will.
Now, real quick, back to the Penguin. We do know that there was a time jump between episodes 5 and 6.
I just heard that. How long is it?
It's supposed to be a few weeks because we're now, because think about it. The film, the movie, The Batman ends a few days into November because it's election day.
Right.
So it's probably like the 4th or 5th of November or something. I forget. I mean, he actually says the date. I just forget what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then this is like a week after that, and it's a few, or at least a big portion of the show, and then it's a few days. So we're now, I would say, at least a few weeks because they've had a chance to grow some of the mushrooms and stuff like that in the down in the tunnels and set everything up with the electricity and all of that stuff. So, so what did you think of the time jump? What do you think of what their setup that they have down there?
I didn't think the time jump was bad, actually, at all. I mean, I wasn't as focused on the time jump as we kept going through the episode, but that was just me. I guess I didn't really have two opinions. I didn't really have two thoughts about it after like a little while. But
so you're cool with the time jump and everything.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
Okay. What about you, Josh? You're fine with the time jump?
I didn't even know I was fine with it. It didn't bother me at all.
What about you, bud?
Yeah, I was cool with it. At first, I was kind of like, how did they get everything set up so fast? And then it occurred to me, like, just a few seconds later, I was like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be a little bit later. Because like, they show the snow and stuff, and I was thinking, okay, well, yeah, I mean, we're in November. This is a northern city, so that would make sense. So I wasn't thinking that it was a time jump initially,
right?
Until I started seeing some of the setup that they had underneath, and so that's what kind of got me that, okay, yeah, there was a time jump here. So I thought that was cool, because the reason I ask is because, we watched House of the Dragon season 1, Josh, you and I, and there were time jumps and they didn't really say how long had passed.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I did remember watching that thinking like, whoa, what did I miss? And that was harder. This episode The way they did this, you could still follow along. But you're right. In House of the Dragon, woof, that did some jumping and shaking and moving.
Oh yeah, like that is difficult, and it's
It
funny
gets
how they have
confusing.
behind the scenes of this, because like they do it for Game of Thrones and House of Dragon because it's so complicated.
Yes.
This is pretty straightforward, but it's good. I need to go back, and I had started watching a little of it.
I have a binder of notes that I have to keep with me at all times when I'm watching that show.
Which one?
House of Dragon.
Oh God!
House of the Dragon.
Wait, did you start watching more episodes?
I started watching a few more. But the thing is, like, I find myself doing this all the time where I have to focus. Like, I can't be bothered at all. That's not a show I can put on where if the kids are still up, well, first of all, that show should not be on if the kids are still up. But I'm just saying, like, if Kate asks me, honey, can you do this? No. I lose it. I'm done. I forget it. I got to start over. Just write more notes. Do it again.
Yeah,
that's the hardest part about that show is how focused you have to stay. Can't fall asleep. Can't do any of that. You got to stay up. You have to pay attention.
And they'll have like people draw like a family tree of it.
Yes, I have that in my notes.
And even that's like complicated. And you're like, okay, this is there. How did this become available? I have to call Bob. He calls me.
The HBO site has a family tree that you can reference.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
I could look at that thing. Who's who?
But I'm excited. I'm excited for the next 2 episodes. Next episode is called Top Hat, which is really cool.
Mm.
So hopefully we'll, I've seen some just pictures of him in his legendary top hat. Interesting to see if he'll have an umbrella.
You know what they're gonna do? It'll be like raining or something like that. They'll have him carrying an umbrella with the top hat on at one point just to show it.
You don't think he'll say?
I don't think so. He's not going to be carrying that umbrella around.
He's not a fishy penguin.
Fishy.
It
could be worse.
He's not an amphibious penguin. This is a very serious penguin.
I remember in Batman Returns when he says that, when he's like, things could be worse. Your nose could be dripping blood. Your nose could be dripping. He goes, ah. You're like, oh.
Thank God he's not.
He made Bobby great. It took 40 episodes, but
the thing I remembered from that is when he's got the little Batmobile set up in his little trailer, like it's a video game or something like that.
Oh God!
They did a reactionary video, Danny DeVito, of watching Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
Oh really?
All right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Just real quick, final thoughts on the Penguin.
Can't wait for the next one.
Can't wait for the next one.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen. Let's go ahead and let's get into our next topic here. This is going to be something special, and here we go. We have somebody very special with us, or hope we do.
I'm here. It's not letting my video play.
Okay, so we do have you here then. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Josh. Josh, why don't you introduce our guest?
So very, very special treat tonight. Our guest is the one and only Ben Rock. Ben is a friend of mine. We met at our kids' school, just hanging out on one of the benches, waiting for them to get out of school talking. And he was the production designer for a movie that Bobby and I watched in 1999 that scared us to death, The Blair Witch Project. Good God, I still remember that ending. And we were talking about our podcast, and I asked him if he would like to come on, and he said I would love to. So everybody, let's hear it for Ben Rock. Ben, welcome.
Hey, I don't know what's going on with my video. My camera will not connect. I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. Again, this is Dad's turn to talk, and we are glad to have you. And this is a perfect episode for you to be on, being that it is our Halloween edition here. And so we thought it would, when Josh told me that you were interested to come on, I told him, yeah, see if we can get him on for Halloween. So we're glad you could join us.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to come on.
So why don't you tell us start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? What is it that you do? I understand you're currently a director and producer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I do a whole lot of different things. I do a lot of editing. I do a lot of directing. I have recently directed, like in the non-corporate entertainment world. The corporate stuff is less interesting but more constant. I've directed 2 audio projects, one for Audible and then one for the horror streamer called Shudder. And both of them I co-wrote with my writing partner Bob DeRosa. So the one for Audible was called Catchers, and it's basically the pitch is small town dog catchers versus a pack of horrible monsters in a small town. And it's a lot of fun to do. It stars Billy Gardell, who was he was Mike on Mike and Molly, and he was Bob on Bob Hart's Abishola. And it also has it's got a bunch of cool character actors like Marilyn Reichskub, who was Chloe on 24.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
That's awesome. 24.
David Patrick Kelly, who was in the original The Crow. He was in The Warriors.
Yeah.
Penn and Teller Get Killed. Bunch of cool stuff. Nikki Michaud, she's like it's got a lot of great actors. And then Video Palace, which was like a serial-esque first-person investigation into these white videotapes that made our hero speak in a language that didn't exist, and slowly, kind of Wicker Man style, drove him to leave our dimension, shall we say. But it's his first-person investigation, so it's like his podcast presented by him as he investigates the mysterious origin of these white tapes, and finds out about this old video store called Video Palace that supposedly had everything. And it's super, super creepy fun. That's on Shudder. Anyone can hear it for free right now. The Audible one, you have to have an Audible subscription for, but you can get a free 30-day trial, listen to it, and then end your trial and pay nothing if you were so inclined.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, Josh, you said that we love 24. He also had Carlos Bernard on a film of his, Alien Raiders. I was telling you about that.
If my camera was working, you would see the Alien Raiders poster behind me. I mean, my camera is working. I'm looking at it. It's not connecting to StreamYard. I've never tried to connect this camera to StreamYard. It does it on Zoom every day, all day. Yeah. So Alien Raiders. Yeah, our lead was Carlos Bernard, who played Tony Almeida. He was our hero.
Loved it. Oh, I've seen 24, and so has Bob, like tons of times. Like, oh, so good.
Now, Alien. I was kind of looking at your IMDb page. Alien Raiders, was that one of your first films that you directed, or?
That's the only. I've directed a lot of films. That's the only feature I've directed. So yeah, I mean, like to date, it's my first feature. And hopefully, I have a couple irons in the fire that might be my second feature. But it has been a while because that came out in 2009. So.
And you've also directed. I was looking several like podcast episodes and web episodes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I have a podcast called the Cinematography Podcast where we talk to cinematographers for movies and stuff.
Okay.
And we've been doing that for 10 years, and so it's something like I just interviewed somebody. Yes, I interviewed the DP of Smile just last weekend, or Smile 2 rather. Well, he shot.
Just saw that.
He shot both of them. I interviewed him, and then I interviewed the DP of Saturday Night yesterday. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Saturday Night was a pretty good film. I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
I have a second YouTube channel where I do movie and television reviews. I actually really liked Saturday Night. I thought that was a very, very good movie. I thought the cast was amazing in that.
I agree. Yeah, I was really impressed. Yeah, I mean, like this time of year, we start getting into all the Oscar nominated kind of stuff. So like, it's for us always a race to be like, can we get all the Oscar nominated DPs? And last year we got 4 out of 5 of them.
Okay.
And the 5th one was Rodrigo Prieto, who shot the Martin Scorsese movie and Killers of the Flower Moon. And
oh, really?
He was supposed to be on it. They sent me to a screening of it, and then he just wasn't available. But we talked to. I mean, we did talk to Hoyte van Hoytema, who shot Oppenheimer.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Oh God.
I'm a giant cinematography nerd. I'm not a cinematographer, but I'm a nerd for it, and so it's always exciting to me to talk to some of these people. Some of them are my heroes. So
now you mentioned you talked with the one for Smile too. What did they? Did you see Smile too?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't talk to them unless I'd seen it.
What did you think of that? I mean, the only reason I ask is because with Halloween coming up, what did you think of that as a sequel?
I liked it. I was actually talking to my writing partner about it, Bob DeRosa, and he didn't like it. And he was like, the main character basically has no agency. So it's basically a movie about a demon tormenting a woman until the very bitter end. I liked it. I was with it. I must say that I think, if I have a criticism, it's like the last third of it. If you think about it too much, you're like, what really happened? Like, what did she hallucinate and what was real? And I feel like if you start pulling on that thread, the movie unravels, because there's some pieces of information that you need for other parts of it. And like, none of it works unless all of it's true, but half of it is not true. Half of it is a hallucination. But I still thought it was super creepy. I mean, like, the horror movie that I won't shut up about this year is The Substance, and I saw it twice, and it's probably my favorite movie I've seen all year. Like, it's just so good.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see that yet. That was the one Lily was telling us about a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so
it is not for everyone because it's pretty extreme stuff, but it's great. Yeah. Like, I just love that movie.
Interesting. So Ben, why don't we talk a little bit about Blair Witch, because good God, that movie I thought was ahead of its time. God, yeah, Derek just like, we literally, Bob and I went with his ex-wife at late at night to go see it.
And we went to like a midnight showing too, didn't we?
Yeah, how did I stay awake? That's it's funny
because it scared you to death.
So to this day, and I told you this, Ben, when at the very end, when right before it ends, and you see them in the corner, and the movie just ends, and you just get the chills. What was basically, maybe take us through the process on, why they decided to film something like that, and were you guys maybe like, skeptical at first? Just, maybe give us a brief insight of what.
Skeptical, not at all. No. I mean, like, I would consider myself kind of the first super fan of the idea. So we all went to college together. So the two co-directors were Ed Sanchez and Dan Myrick, and the producer, there were 2 producers, but the one that actually there were 3 producers, but there was only one on like in Maryland with us. And that was my good friend, Greg Hale. And Greg and I had gone to 2 different film programs together. He was a little bit older than me. Like, he was probably 30 when we were making the movie. And I was like 20, 25, 26. And a year or 2 before we made it. So we made it in 1997. In 1996, I was hanging out at Greg's house, and he sort of pitched me the idea, but he knew that I was into occult stuff and weird stuff. And is cursing okay on here or no? Like, I won't curse if you don't want me to.
Keep it to a minimum, but yeah.
I just won't. It's fine.
Don't drop the F-bomb, but otherwise, yeah, you're fine.
Having a kid has made me aware of how sewer like my potty mouth can get.
You know what it is with us, we figure, with us, since we're all dads, we know a kid is going to walk in at any moment, so we try to keep it somewhat clean.
My kid is hopefully asleep. By the way, the craziest thing about this about the StreamYard is it sees my camera, and when I choose it, it won't stay on it.
Jeez.
Man.
Yeah. And I have kind of a quasi professional camera setup for my podcast, so anyway, I'm bummed out.
No. We'll make it work. We've had guests on before who've been off camera, so we make it work.
I'll stop trying. I should have just gone on my phone. Anyway, so I was over at Greg's house. This is like 1996. And I was not even a year out of college. And Greg said, have you ever heard of the Blair Witch? And I said, you mean the Bell Witch, which is a witch legend from Adams, Tennessee in the 1800s. It's a really spooky story. And he's like, no, the Blair Witch. And then he proceeded to kind of lay out a rough version of the mythology of it. And I was eating out of his hand because it all sounded like a real witch story. And then he said, hey, and Ed Sanchez is from Maryland. I didn't really know Ed back then, but I was like, yeah, I think I sort of heard that in passing. He's like, so some friends of his went off to make a documentary about this. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, and then they disappeared. And I'm like, what? And then he's like, yeah. And well, here's the crazy part. A year later, all their footage turned up under the foundation of an old house. And I'm like, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. And he's like, so we're going to investigate it. And I was like, you guys are going to effing die. And then he told me what it was. And I loved the idea. Like, I thought it was such a cool idea, and not just the idea of the movie, but how they were going to make it. And the original concept for it was going to be more like the footage that the three main characters got in the woods was maybe going to be a third of the movie, and the rest of it was going to be analysis and archival footage and sort of like a documentary about the Blair Witch, and this would be the central mystery. And I just thought it was really cool, like using improv, in a dramatic way, like, the Christopher Guest movies like Waiting for Guffman and stuff had been out. So like, I had seen an improv movie, but I had never, like, it never occurred to me that you could do it like what he was proposing to do. And I basically said, like, let me on board. Like, I'll sweep the floors. This is the most exciting idea I've ever heard. And we were all like, we had all graduated from film school over the last, 3 or 4 years. Ed and Dan graduated, and Mike Manello, who was one of the producers, had graduated 2 years before me and Greg. And then Rob Cowie, one of the other producers, was the next year. And then Greg and I. So, but we'd all worked on movies. I'd worked on a bunch of like low budget movies, a lot of them in Mobile, Alabama, as a makeup effects artist. That was like, I wanted to make monsters, and that was the thing I was most excited about. And I was starting to kind of burn out on that, living in Orlando, Florida. There just wasn't the work. And when the real work came in, it was union, and I wasn't in the union, so I couldn't even bid on it or get involved. And it was very frustrating. And I wanted to direct anyway. That was why I went to film school. And he asked me, the first thing he asked me to do was, they made a, like, today you would call it a sizzle reel, but basically it was a VHS tape that was a pitch for the whole movie. So what they wanted me to write up was something that kind of laid out the mythology. They wanted me to expand on what they had already kind of done, like name all the characters and, maybe flesh it out some. So they'd kind of built a skeleton that I built on top of. And then find images. Like I literally went to a library. The internet wasn't a thing yet. I went to a library. I made photocopies. I did research. I wrote up this thing, and then we made this pitch tape. And it's a long story about how they got the pitch tape into the hands of John Pearson. But John, because of that, it got exposure on IFC, and because of that, the movie got financed at literally $25,000. I think I have heard estimates between $25,000 and $35,000. I have asked the producers, and they said, yeah. So like all I know is I got paid $300 a week to work on it, and I was happy to do it. It was a really exciting thing. And what I was about to say was, like, all of us had been out of film school, and we'd all worked in the industry to some degree on something. Like Greg, our producer, had been in the art department on Mad TV. He'd come out here and worked on Mad TV for the first season of it, I think. Ed and Dan had both done different things. So like, it's not like we were old hats at it and jaded, veterans, but we'd been around a little bit. And to me, it was exciting to try something that I'd never heard of anyone making a movie like that before. And so I jumped. I couldn't have been more excited to do it. And the making of it was, without any exaggeration, like the most fun I've ever had doing anything. I wish anything I did at all ever could be as much fun as making that movie.
You mentioned that you hadn't really heard of anything being done like that before, and that's true, because I don't recall any found footage movies or anything like that before. I mean, now they're a dime a dozen. There's Cloverfield, or you've got what was that one? There was one with the sharks or whatever, where those open water. Was that yes?
It wasn't really a found footage movie. It was just shot on cheap cameras.
Okay, so, but yeah.
Well, we did not invent the idea, though. I mean, like a lot of people will bring up Cannibal Holocaust, which came out I think in like 80 or 81. That was an Italian cannibal movie, and they'll call that a found footage movie. But if you watch it, it's not. There's like found footage within the movie, in that it's like these people went off to investigate this cannibal culture in the jungle and disappeared, and here's some of their footage. But there are characters in the movie analyzing their footage, and it's regular old master shot, reverse shot, dialogue, insert coverage, yada yada. It's not a found footage movie. I get every year people point out that we were copying them. But if we were copying anyone, there's a French movie called Man Bites Dog that came out I think in 1992. That's a camera crew following a serial killer, and it's really good. It's shot black and white, 16 millimeter. It's super grungy and raw, and I haven't seen it in a long time. Like I think we watched it when we were getting ready to make Blair Witch, but like that was kind of the inspiration. But it goes even back to like the 60s. There was in the late 60s, it's not a horror movie, but there's a movie called David Holzman's Diary that was a fake documentary, and it was like a fake first person documentary. And you know, I mean, it's been out there. You know, it wasn't just the cheapness of it, because the cheapness would appeal to a producer, obviously, because it's like, hey, we don't need fancy lights, we don't need we don't need to hire name actors. But what was funny is like being in Orlando, and at the time, you know, and they were trying to bill Orlando back then as Hollywood East, so Panavision had an office in Orlando, and there were all these kind of I don't know, they weren't sketchy, they just weren't like ready for primetime people in Orlando who like saw themselves as producers, maybe because they were rich and they bought a bunch of gear, and they were all saying like, you can't make the movie like this, you got to shoot it on 35 millimeter. And Ed and Dan were like, that goes against the concept of it, you know. Like we had a 16 millimeter camera that actually was the camera that belonged to our DP, Neil Fredericks. It was a CP16 that you could buy back then for $2,000. And then it was Greg's idea to give Heather the High 8 camera, which, by the way, I bought out off of production when we were done, because I just wanted to have a camera. So I don't have it here anymore. It's in a museum in Seattle now, at the Mopop Museum. But like that for a couple of years, that was like the camera I just used as my tooling around video camera. Wow. But yeah, I don't know if I just answered your question, but yeah, I mean, it was
no, you did. What, you know, I just rewatched the movie last night. I wanted to rewatch it prior to this, because I haven't seen it since 1999.
How did it hold up?
And you know what? I think it does hold up, and I think a lot of that is because of the way that it's shot, the fact that it is a low budget film, that it's filmed with these you know, they're not advanced cameras or anything like that. I mean, it feels like it did then. It feels like it's people filming, you know, home movies, or, you know, they're filming a documentary, like as like a college film crew or something like that. And, you know, so I think it holds up. Now, I also kind of looked into the filming process of, now what I read was that your lead actors are out there in the woods, and every day they tried to make sure the film crew would try to make sure these actors were more and more sleep deprived, or that we would give them less and less food, or stuff like that. Explain the process of that and how that worked, that shoot itself.
Well, this goes back to Greg Hale again. So Greg Hale, one of the producers, was a graduate of the Army Survival School. And in Army Survival School, some of the things they teach you is how to hold up under torture. And so it's under things like sleep deprivation and food deprivation. And I don't want to make it sound like we tortured them, because we didn't. But I mean, they were in on it. But but they really were in the woods, and we really did give them all their own food and water. Like we had to provide that, and we very consciously gave them a little less every day. And also we're waking them up. Like when you see them waking up, they were really waking up. They would go to sleep in their tent at night, and then we would sneak out there in camouflage and you know, do whatever our nasty business was to to mess with them in the night. So they knew it was us, obviously, but they are actors and they knew to tune that one thing out, like, and it's not hard because like they were really, because we would always have a tent and one of us would spend the night in the woods wherever close to where they were with a walkie, and they had a walkie. So if one of them broke their leg or something, we could none of us had cell phones back then, in 1997, but we could figure out a way to get, an emergency vehicle to them or something. Never happened, luckily. But so they were deep in the woods. They were in Seneca State Park for most of the movie, in Maryland. And it's cold and it's isolated. And yeah, I mean, they were just way out there. So I don't actually think you have to act that much when there's like people running around or you're hearing the sounds of babies or anything like that. Stuff was super creepy just on its own. And, like we were wearing camouflage head to toe with camouflage face masks, and then we had headlamps, and when we got close to their camp we would throw like a red gel into the headlamp so we were harder to see, and then we would turn it off when we got close. And the first night when we're messing with them, like they were in a pine forest, and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face without a light. It was so dark in there. And so their reactions are, again, they're not genuine, like they weren't afraid that any of it was real, but their reactions, like the reaction to being awakened in the middle of the night is going to be the same. We woke them up like we would go out there at 2-3 in the morning.
Wow.
It's funny. Bob and I had seen so many movies together, but like the, suspense or like horror type of genre, we did not see a lot of them. But for some reason, this one intrigued both of us. And I don't know, even for me, I'm just not, into that type of movie, but like this just grabbed my attention. And I remember seeing it, and it just was, we were hooked. We were like, oh my God. Now, my question is, obviously we never see the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Had you guys in like pre-production, had you ever sketched out what you thought maybe they would look like, or from right away you were like, they were never going to be shown, it was all going to be mysterious?
Good question.
Okay, so there was talk of seeing something in that last scene, and what that something was kind of up for debate. And if you remember, the Mary Brown character talks about when the Blair Witch was seen, that she had hair on her like a horse. There was talk about because I had a makeup effects background, could I make like a horse lady suit? Which of course I couldn't, for the no money that we had. We had no money. No money. And that was bandied about. There was one idea that I actually liked, which was when Heather's camera falls at the end, you see her hand land in front of the lens and like a child's hand move it away very quickly. And I thought that was cool, but like we literally shot that scene, like where that house was. That was in a different park. That was in Patapsco State Park, which is closer to Baltimore. And if you listen to season 1 of the podcast Serial, apparently it's just like nothing but the bodies of mobsters buried every 3 feet in all of Patapsco State Park. Like I was shocked to hear that, because I'm like, I was in there, but anyway, but that house was it was called the Griggs house, and it was just standing in the middle of the woods. Then there were foundations of a few other houses around it, and there was a Nike missile base, like an army base, that was closed, that kind of went up almost, maybe a few hundred feet away from that house. But then it's just like woods beyond that house. And the Nike missile base was way in the woods too. And it was closed. Like we snuck in there, and, there wasn't anything that interesting in there. But the story I've told myself, and I don't actually know if this is historically accurate, is that like the government took that area over using eminent domain and just cleared everyone out, but left those houses standing. But that house was super creepy, just the way it was. But it was so deep into the woods, and we filmed that scene on Halloween night, 1997. True story. We filmed in the month of October. It was like the last 2 weeks of October. Well, it was the last 8 days of October that the 3 actors were in the woods. So that scene was filmed on Halloween. And the idea of getting kids in there, like bringing a kid out there in the middle, to this dingy, gross house in the middle of the night, like no one no one was going to let us do that, and it's not like we had the money to do it. And I don't even know why that idea didn't prevail. I thought it was a cool idea, but the idea of having Mike facing the wall came up kind of late, because like during the whole production we were like, what's going to happen? And if you saw the theatrical version, there's when they're talking to the townies at the beginning of the movie, there's a guy with a backwards baseball cap who talks about how Rustin Parr brought the kids in there and that was filmed after the movie got picked up at Sundance. It's the only real change that happened after Sundance. And it was because Artisan was like, why is he facing the wall? We need anything. And so Ed just filmed one of his friends and stuck that into the movie. And I feel like it was actually a really good addition. But if you ever see the Sundance cut, that guy is not in it.
Really? See,
and so wow. it's just a weird enigma why he's standing with his back to you, and it's still creepy as all hell. It's just you have no reason to understand it, and that's the version they picked up at Sundance. They also, after they picked it up at Sundance, they had us go back to the house and film, and you can find this on YouTube. We did like 4 other endings, and the budget for the pickups was like, easily 5-10 times what the cost of the actual movie was. We all got paid really well. They flew us all out there, put us up in a hotel, hired, I was able to actually hire people to build the stuff they wanted, and all the endings were stupid. Like they were all really dumb, and like one of them is like Mike is crucified on a giant stick man, or Mike is hovering off the ground and there's stick men all around him, and like all of them are just hokey. And but you can find them all on YouTube. And Ed and Dan basically said to Artisan, we don't want, after they did it and paid us for it, they said we don't want to use any of them. And Artisan's like, we think you're kissing away a lot of money. And they were like, to Artisan's credit, like they let Ed and Dan stick with their original ending.
Now, the ending itself, I know there are a lot of fan theories going on out there. Do you? And yet it's left off very kind of an ambiguous. Do you all as the film crew and whatnot know what happened, or was it even yourselves left it as an ambiguous ending to build so the audience can make up its own mind?
I mean, I think it's like, I think it's intentionally ambiguous, but it's like what would happen, what you would get if you encountered a real paranormal whatever this was. To me, the Blair Witch is like the Bermuda Triangle. It's not like the story. This goes beyond the scope of the movie, but like I did 3 specials. I wrote one and directed 2 others I wrote Curse of the Blair Witch for Sci-Fi, and then the Burkittsville 7 for Showtime, and then Shadow of the Blair Witch again for Sci-Fi for Book of Shadows, which is another conversation. But but like, we were talking back then about the sequel Ed and Dan wanted to make, which would have been like a colonial era witch story, not unlike Robert Eggers' The Witch, which came out obviously years later. When I saw The Witch, I'm like, oh, okay. I would flatter any of us at that time to think that we could have done anything that good, because The Witch, I think, is a freaking masterpiece. But that was the vibe that they were pitching back then. And the idea was Ellie Kedward, who we call the Blair Witch, at the beginning of it, we just see her get, killed as a witch. But, like, was she the one doing any of it? No, the answer is no. Like, to me, it's that forest, it's sort of like Pet Cemetery, it's like, it's not the Pet Cemetery that's the problem. It's in the world of the book and the movie, it's the Indian burial ground and whatever else. Like, the land itself is cursed. It's like a cursed land story. Activity. So, and when in the 2016 Blair Witch movie, just called Blair Witch, they actually kind of show the Blair Witch very fleetingly. They do their best, but to me, it just cheapens it. Like, it's not how I would do it myself. To me, I like it being a little ambiguous. Now, the fan theories that like Josh and Mike brought Heather out to the woods to kill her, that's all fun, to speculate about, but obviously that wasn't what we weren't thinking about that at the time. So, it's weird to have worked on a project that has fan theories. That's cool enough that fans have theories about it.
Yeah, one of the theories that I read was that Josh had gone, when he went missing, that he was possessed by the Blair Witch, and that at the ending he had Mike standing in the corner so he could kill Heather and then turn around and then he would kill Mike at that point. That was one of the fan theories I read, and then
I could go with that. Yeah, sure, why not?
yeah, I mean there were several of them out there,
yeah.
And that was the one that, as I was kind of reading, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because yeah, it is a very ambiguous ending where it could be interpreted a lot of different ways.
Wasn't Heather standing in the corner?
No,
That was Mike who was standing in the corner.
Was Mike in the corner? God, it's been so long. It's been so long.
There's a new version of it actually coming out very soon, and it's basically a transfer of all the original elements. It's coming out from a British Blu-ray company called Second Sight, and they went back to all the original high 8 tapes and all the 16 millimeter film, and they retransferred all the 16 millimeter film and scanned it at a higher resolution. And because like what you've seen, if it was shot standard definition video in 16 millimeter, all of it was transferred to standard def, edited standard def, and then blown up to 35 millimeter from standard def. So if you saw it in the theater, that's what you saw was a 35 millimeter print taken from standard def. If you saw it on home video, what you saw was that 35 millimeter print transferred back to standard def again. So it's like gone through a weird filter. And so they've gone back and actually reassembled the original pieces. They re-edited it. It's the same movie in every way. It's just with the source material. And the DP, Neil Fredericks, who unfortunately died 20 years ago in a plane crash, but never stopped complaining to me that they didn't, when they got a theatrical release, that they didn't go back to the 16 and cut the 16 millimeter negative and put it into the print. Like, what you were seeing wasn't the 16 millimeter. It was 16 millimeter transferred to video, transferred to film. So it didn't look as good as it should have. And this new Second Sight Blu-ray, I've seen it. It looks amazing.
I'll have to check that out. Because go ahead, Derek.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, first of all, Ben, I want to thank you for reintroducing me to the concept of a nightlight when I got done watching this movie, because I couldn't sit in the dark for about a month. So I want to thank you for that. You had mentioned that you sound pretty, well versed in the genre of horror. Is there like a particular set of films like you would recommend to somebody like me who doesn't I don't really dig horror all that much, but I dig suspense, but I'm just kind of curious of getting your insight about movies that you really find people should get their eyes on from a suspense or maybe even horror perspective, because you seem pretty well versed.
I mean, there are movies that kind of like walk the line, like like Seven or The Silence of the Lambs or something, where it's like I could say it's a horror movie. And just this year we had a movie come out with Nicolas Cage called Long Legs. That is kind of in that mode. I had been told like, oh, it's like Seven and Silence of the Lambs, and that like obviously set my expectations unrealistically, like mythologically too high, but it's really good. I mean, there's a lot of thriller movies that kind of walk that line, that are like, you could kind of argue. A friend of mine, Scott Weinberg, who used to be a movie critic, and he's an avid horror podcaster. He's like, what's the difference? Like, explain the difference between a thriller and a horror movie. And it's like, yeah, you kind of get into it. It's like every horror movie kind of is a thriller on some level, and every thriller is kind of a horror movie on some level. Maybe not every, but like there's the Venn diagram overlaps pretty hard. I mean, to me, like, if you watch older horror movies like from the 80s, there's a lot of great ones, but I feel like just because of technology and the way we are used to seeing stuff, like John Carpenter's The Thing, I still think it's a freaking masterpiece. But it's like it doesn't have CGI, and some of the effects hold up better than others, although I would still argue that it's better than CGI all the way through. There are movies like that. There are movies like, there's a Swedish film that came out in 2008 or 2009, I think, called Let the Right One In, that I happen to think is just one of the most beautiful, brilliant movies ever. It is a horror movie. It was remade in America as Let Me In. But Let the Right One In. I mean, Let Me In is not a bad film, but Let the Right One In is like something kind of special. And it's about like a young boy who lives with his mother. His parents are separated, and he's a little touched. Something's not right about him. And a neighbor moves in with a little girl who befriends him, and you realize she's a vampire. And
wow.
And
I'm down for that. We're gonna have to tell Lily about this one.
It's so good. And I mean, it's just a really good character. The kids are great. Both the kids are freaking amazing in it, and it looks great. It was actually shot by the same DP as Oppenheimer. Hoyte von Hoytema shot that. And it ends. One of my favorite shots in any movie is I'll just say it's in a swimming pool towards the end, and it's like a shot that tells the whole story without showing you. It allows your brain to make up what's really happening, but it shows you so much, and it's just a brilliantly done movie. I mean, I there are obviously like extreme movies. Like right now, you have the Terrifier movies. Not for everyone, honestly. Not for me. I'm not the world's biggest fan of those. I'm not casting aspersions on anyone who likes that. It's just not my thing.
Right.
But I mean, like, honestly, one of my good friends was a producer on the second one, and like, good for him. And they're making a lot of money off of those movies. But I mean, like, horror kind of spans like a giant spectrum of movies. And so, it could be anything from, spooky movies like The Others with Nicole Kidman, which is
good. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's not like a gory, scary movie. Or The Sixth Sense, I would say is a horror movie. I have argued with people about Silence of the Lambs, which I'm like, there's a guy making a suit out of skinned women. I don't know how that's not a horror movie. Like, I just don't, I don't know the argument for that's a thriller. It's not like a cop trying to chase a guy who robbed a bank. It's pretty serious. And also like all the stuff with Hannibal Lecter, like but it's a beautiful movie because it's at its heart, it's kind of a love story. Like it's about an unrequitable love between Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling, and they can't be in love, but it's like they have follow me here. I feel like you could probably lay it up next to When Harry Met Sally and go like, they have all the same romantic beats. It's just, he's a serial killer in prison and they can't really touch each other. But in that one moment when their fingers touch, when he hands her paperwork back, there's like, it's very intimate. Like it's just a very intimate, brilliant movie.
It is.
And yeah. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I mean, like there's just so many. Like if you're not into horror movies, do not see The Substance. Like The Substance is a spicy meatball, but my God, is it genius? It's genius. I just really loved. I mean, like I was with it all the way through, but it's a subgenre that we all call body horror. Where like David Cronenberg's The Fly is maybe like the prime example.
Okay,
yeah.
No, thank you, Ben. I got a whole poster full of notes that you just gave me, so I appreciate it.
I hope you wrote some of those down, Derek, because I'm going to ask you later.
Yeah,
I'll make you a list. But this year has been good, though. Like, there was a great movie called Late Night with the Devil that was like a Johnny Carson-esque TV show from the 70s. And it's not exactly found footage, but it's supposed to be like the lost tape of this notorious episode of this Johnny Carson show where a woman comes on with a little girl who supposedly was possessed, and he does kind of an exorcism on the air, and it's really good.
That sounds good.
I loved it. Yeah, that was great. There was a movie, again, like this walks the line between thriller and horror, and maybe people would argue it's more thriller. It's like a noir film called Strange Darling. That's kind of it's one of those movies that's told out of sequence, but for a very good reason. And you're not going to know the actors in it. They're a little bit less famous, but the cinematographer, and this is why I know about it because we had him on the podcast, was the actor Giovanni Ribisi. He shot the movie, and they shot it on 35 millimeter film, and it's like a cat and mouse story that is very interesting and twisty and twisted. And like Barbara Hershey's in it in a small role, and Ed Begley Jr.'s in it in a small role, but it looks gorgeous, and it's like really surprising and scary. Long Legs I thought was good. Smile 2 I thought was good. There's a movie that got a very limited theatrical release, but I have a Regal pass, so I'll just go see anything. And it was called Azrael, and it's on Shudder now, and it stars Samara Weaving, and it's also just really just a solid weird ass movie. Like it was really, really good. And it's a movie that has like almost no spoken dialogue in it, which is a tough trick to pull off.
Thank
So
you for that.
if you had done a sequel to Blair Witch, so you're saying you would have probably explored like colonial or
yeah, we would have. So I mean, like, I would not have been the one pulling the trigger on that unless they handed the reins over to me. But Ed and Dan, what they wanted to make was a colonial era, because like in the backstory of Ellie Kedward and the Blair Witch stuff, it starts then. It starts in the 1700s, and this is my opinion, and you can take it or leave it, but they've made 2 sequels to Blair Witch. Both of them have been box office disappointments and less than well received by the fans, although I think that Adam Wingard's 2016 one was better than Book of Shadows.
Book of Shadows was awful. I'm sorry, it was awful.
I don't think I don't think it had a chance to be good because they greenlit it in January and it was in theaters in October. It takes time to make a movie. It takes time to write a movie, and they had about 2 months to write it. And so even the people who defend it as like for what it was trying to be, and like Joe Berlinger, who directed it, is a legendary documentarian, and he's made some like wonderful documentaries, and he's I think a brilliant guy. Like I love his work, but he just didn't have a chance. I just don't think that I don't think that you don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Artisan wanted to make an initial public offering, and they wanted to have a Blair Witch sequel out barely a year after the first one came out. They wanted it in theaters so that they can make their IPO and they could all make millions of dollars. And it was a cynical move. If they had waited 2 years, I think there would have been more hunger for it. And also they could have gotten, I mean, like, I don't know that I would have been along for the ride, but they could have certainly gotten Ed and Dan, and, they probably would have brought me back. But, like, I have a good relationship with all of them. It's not like we had a falling out or anything, but like, I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't have been the first one on the team to come back. Ed and Dan would have come back if they'd waited 2 years, and it could have been done with some integrity. They could have taken some time to develop it, but instead they just wanted to churn it out, and they thought that they could do it. And to me, it was cynical. But also I think that if you look at both of the sequels that came out, they're both young people in the woods with cameras. And it's like, I'm really not trying to say that we're any great geniuses, because we're a bunch of dumbasses from Florida, but like, I don't think you do it better. Like, I think that whether it was intentional or accidental, the way it turned out, you're not going to outdo young people in the woods with cameras better than that. And so right now Blumhouse is about to reboot it again, and they haven't talked, to my knowledge, to any of us. I actually like went on Twitter and complained about it and got interviewed by the Hollywood Reporter about my complaint. But
nice.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't want to be sour grapes guy. I'm not like wishing them failure at all. Like I honestly, I was a part of something that still has legs today, and people still reference it today. So like, all I want is for the franchise to do well. I wanted Book of Shadows to do well, even though I'd seen the movie before it came out, because I made a TV special for it, and I thought it was garbage. I was hoping that I was just biased and that people would really like it, and they didn't.
You weren't being biased. It was bad. Ben, I saw it once.
Yeah.
I saw it I rented it and ended up watching it, and I was just so disappointed in it because I really liked the first one. Like Josh said, when he and I left the theater, we had that eerie feeling, you know, like,
my God.
And I didn't get that at all from the second one. I just kind of laughed at it. I thought it was cynical.
By the way, The Substance gave me that eerie feeling. When I finished seeing The Substance, I had to call somebody back, and I called my friend back on the phone, and as soon as he answered the phone, I'm like, I don't know how to talk to anyone right now, because my brain is still churning on this crazy thing I just saw. Like it was definitely off-putting. But like, in a good way. Like, I've just encountered something that's very unique and one of a kind. But yeah, I mean, but I wanted Book of Shadows to do well. I wanted the 2016 one to do well, even though like the 2016 one, there's like a little bit more sour grapes on my part because nobody even reached out to me to talk to me about it at all. And you know, it was the first time that there was a Blair Witch thing in the world that I wasn't even a consultant of some kind on. And I'm driving down the road and there's a billboard and it's my stick man that's the thing I designed is their whole poster. And like, you know, not an acknowledgement, not a special thanks, but you know, welcome to Hollywood. That's how it works out here. Like I don't have an expectation of that because intellectually, I don't have an expectation of that because I know what I did. It was a work for hire. They don't owe me anything. It would be nice to be in the inside club, but you know, like, and I've talked to all the guys, you know, who were part of the original, and like, especially the person I probably talked to the most is one of the other producers, Mike Manello, and we're both like, if Blumhouse would take a meeting with us, we would encourage them strongly. Don't do another found footage movie. Don't make it more found footage. You're not gonna. It's not that you can't make a good found footage movie. It's just I feel like you can't surprise people with it. Now you could look at examples like there's a Spanish found footage series called Wreck that's pretty good. It was the first one was remade in America as Quarantine. So it's like a news crew goes into like a gas leak or something in an apartment building, and it turns out that there's a zombie outbreak and they're locked in, and it's pretty good. Like and Wreck, I thought they're both good. I thought Wreck was a little bit better, and they made like 5 Wrecks, and I would say the first 3 were pretty good. And then Paranormal Activity also that, you know, they made, I lost count of how many Paranormal Activities they made.
Like
so
it's like 6 or 7 of them, isn't it?
Yes.
So I saw the first 2. I love the first one. I like the second one. And then it's not that I had a problem with it. I just didn't see them after that. But anyway, like it could, I guess, be argued like, well, if you could make it work with Paranormal Activity, why can't you make it work with Blair Witch? I don't know. My feeling is when we built the mythology for Blair Witch, there's so much other stuff to explore in that. And it would be more interesting to explore another part of the story than it would be to just, because like, I don't know if you saw the 2016 Blair Witch, but I mean, it's not bad. Adam Wingard's a great filmmaker and he's a great horror filmmaker. He made The Guest, he made Your Next, and like now he's doing the Godzilla Kong movies for
Universal.
Really? Yeah. Oh, no, he's the real deal. And the guy who wrote it, Simon Barrett, same thing. They're both great. And I'm privy to no information about the 2016 one. I did see it at the ArcLight in Hollywood when it still existed with Dan Myrick, the co-director of Blair Witch. We both went, and it was like like Blair Witch 2 all over again. We're there opening night at a nice theater, and the theater's got like, it's like 20% full. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna move the needle the way they wanted it to. I just think it's like not interesting or surprising. And I don't know that there's PR value necessarily in Blumhouse going back to the original crew and saying like, hey, you know, let's let you guys make this follow up. But I think that it would, I don't know. I just think that somebody with a different sensibility than found footage should be doing it because it starts to feel very contrived. That's all.
Now, one thing I did want to ask, because you briefly mentioned it, and I was going to ask on that, the Stickman, you designed that. How did you come up with the design for that?
Partly out of if my camera was working, I could actually show you. I think I have the book floating around here in my office. So Dan Myrick, the co-director, had come up with a design for the Stickman, and he'd done it in like, I don't know if Adobe Illustrator existed back then, but he'd done it in some computer program, and it was like bundles of sticks it was very complicated, like a totem. And I was looking at that, and I'm like, the art crew is me and like 1 or 2 other people, and I don't have a budget at all. You know, like I have a budget for like twine and scissors. I don't have a budget to like have a production line, and seriously. And in fact, I got yelled at by buying I was at an art supply store, and they had like a $9 ball of twine, and I bought it so that I didn't have to go somewhere else. And Greg Hale, the producer, got mad at me, and they still make fun of me for spending $9 on a ball of twine, which is true. Today, you know, Lothies, whatever, you know, almost 30 years later, you could go to Ace Hardware and get a better an equivalent ball of twine for $3. But anyway, so in the house at the end, I promise I'll get to the Stickman, but this is how I got to it. In the house at the end, if you look around the doors and windows, there are these letters written in a language that's called Transitus Fluvii, and Transitus Fluvii is loosely based on Hebrew. Okay. And I was raised Jewish, so it does say something. I couldn't tell you what it says now, and it was my crude understanding. But because the internet wasn't a thing back then, the way I got Transitus Fluvii was I found a book called, I think it was called Magical Alphabets by Nigel Pennick. And I picked it up at my local Borders bookstore, and it had that in it. And I was like trying to crack the case of how am I going to do this friggin' stickman thing? Like, I don't have anyone to do it, and I don't have any resources. Like, I really didn't have any kind of real budget. And I'm flipping through it, and people have said that we use runes. This is the only kind of rune-like thing in the whole thing is the stickman. And there's a picture in there of a thing called the Rune Man. And if you look at it, you can sort of see the stickman in it. I mean, it's not explicitly the same thing, but you can kind of see it. I was driving down the street. I was like stopped at a red light or something like that. And I was flipping through the book, and I saw that and hastily sketched it on a legal pad. And then I like went back to the condo we were all crashing at. We were all crashing at Ed's. Well, now they're married, but back then they were boyfriend, girlfriend at her condo in Germantown, Maryland. And I went out in the woods and I found, 4 sticks, and I made the first one. And you can, if you look online, you'll find video. I'm wearing a 7 Mary 3 shirt. I don't know if you remember the band 7 Mary 3. And
I too remember that.
And you can't see me, but I am the ghostly elderly visage of the guy who's holding, but I'm showing it to Ed, and Ed's like, it's a pile of sticks tied together. And I'm crestfallen. Like, I thought they hated my design, and a real production designer, what they would have done is then like gone off and like made 10 different prototypes and shown them to Ed and Dan and gotten them to sign off on one. But for me, it was unprofessional, but I was like, no, this is it. This is the idea. And I just stuck with it. And like, what are they going to do? Fire me? They're paying me $300 a week. They're not going to get anyone else. So, that's what I did. Now, we went out there one day with like everyone. So it was Ed and Dan and Greg and Ed's then girlfriend, Stephanie, and her sister, Carolyn, and Dan's then girlfriend, now wife, Julia, and our art director, Rick Moreno. It was like 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 of us. And we made a bunch. And then it was me and this guy, Fahad Vania, after that. And we were just alone making more and more. And we made like probably a few hundred of those things.
I just watched it, Ben. Oh my God, I just saw it. You're right, with the shirt and everything.
Yeah. The video of 25-year-old me.
Oh my God.
And anyway, but like, so Fahad and I were out there like hanging them and figuring out what to do. And then we left and got lunch, and we came back, and I knew that scene would really work at that point, because we came back, and I was like, where are they? I don't know where these things are. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my God, wait, there's one. Oh my God, and like, as soon as you realized that there were any of them, you realized you were surrounded and they were everywhere, but you didn't notice them until that moment. I thought that the guys hated the design until I saw the Sundance poster, and they had like they turned it into a logo and put it on the poster, and they were making the Stickman pins. And I'm like, I really honestly thought they hated it. I thought that they were all like, we're stuck with this guy who we're paying him $300 to do this. Like, you're not going to replace me in Maryland in 1997 in October for that kind of money.
Well, I'll tell you what, it worked.
It sure did.
No, I'm super happy. I mean, like I'm super proud of it. I've seen it recently twice with 2 different audiences in theaters. And it was interesting to see, because also like I asked the audience like how many people have seen it before, and it was like maybe half the hands went up. So it like, wow. It like, like people, because like at the time, I'm sure you all remember in 1999, the hype was insane. Like
absolutely,
it was nuts.
And it kind of killed it. Like, I think that people went in like, okay, scariest movie ever. Come on, like, hit me. And then, it's not the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. It was the people who I think experienced it the best way were people who saw it on bootleg VHS tapes before it was released, and they didn't know anything about it. And people to this day still come up to me and they're like, here's how I saw it. Somebody gave me a tape. They worked at creative artist agency, and they slipped me a tape, and they said, don't read anything about this, just watch it. And I put it in, and I did not know what I was watching. And if you don't know what it is, you don't know that it's not real, which is, I think, an enormous testament to all three of those actors.
Good call.
Oh yeah, the way you guys promoted it, it felt real.
Yeah. But I mean, like the realism comes so strongly from those three actors and their absolute commitment to what they were doing. And, like, I feel like people have tried to copy it, and I think they take the wrong message. I think you could tell almost any genre of movie through a method not unlike this, but it would require basically creating a LARP, a live action role play. And so you could have other characters. It could be science fiction. It could be fantasy. It could be whatever. And just as long as your main characters are making a documentary about it and never stop, you could put them anywhere. Like, we didn't know what live action role play was, but what we created was a scenario that no one was allowed to break, that was very regimented. And those actors knew that they weren't allowed to break it. And then Ed and Dan, like we had an early GPS that was like, the size of a paperback novel with a teeny tiny little gray liquid crystal display on it. And it was kind of hard to use. It was nothing like what we're used to on our phones today, but they went and created waypoints for them to go to. So they didn't know what they were walking into. They just knew that they had to walk, however many, miles or clicks, or I don't know how it calculated it, go this direction until you get to this waypoint. And so, like, they didn't know they were going to encounter the stick men. They didn't know that the day that they walk in a circle, they didn't realize that's what they were doing.
Wow.
And so and Heather, like, was really despondent by that. Like, you can kind of tell, like, she's not the thing about the survival school stuff that Greg had them doing, is that it kind of took away their ability to act. Like, they weren't performing as much. I mean, they were committed to the bit, but they weren't, like, there wasn't enough. By the end of that movie, like, and probably one of my favorite moments in the movie is when Heather opens up that bundle of sticks and freaks out.
Oh, yeah. Where she finds supposedly Josh's what was it, his teeth?
Correct.
Yes.
So I had made that prop, and Greg had asked his dentist, and his dentist had given him a bunch of real teeth. And then I had, like, some fake denture teeth that I bought from a dental supply. And then this stuff called thick blood, that's like fake blood, that's like the consistency of peanut butter. And Josh gave us a bit of his hair, and that's also a piece of his shirt that he'd been wearing, all wrapped up in that bundle. So we'd made that. And then, like, while they were asleep, I'd gone to their tent and put it in front of their tent. And I had said to Ed and Dan that morning, like, did you tell them to open it? And they were like, no. And I'm like, we have to tell them to open it. They're not going to know. They're not going to know, because it was all wrapped up. And Ed was like, well, you're going to have to go. And it was the only time I ever broke scenario. And I went there, and Mike, Josh was already out of it, out of the movie. And Mike and Heather were there. And I said, like, did you open that thing? And they were, I broke scenario. Like, I went through the fourth wall, and Mike said, like, come on, man. Like, we just did this scene. It's a really good scene, and I don't want to, like, go back and redo it. And Heather was like, fine, I'll open it. And so I'm like, cool. And so I'm walking back to the car to leave, and I heard that shriek that she makes when she opens it. And I heard it, like, echo through the woods, and the hairs stood up on the back of my neck. And I was like, oh, that's great.
That's a good scene. It really is a good scene.
But it's like, at that point, Heather hasn't had, like, a real meal. And I mean, like, they're eating, but she hasn't had a normal amount of food in a few days. She's been woken up. She's pretty raw, and she knows it's her last day. So I'm sure that she knows that something horrible is in store for them that night. And that moment, I feel like, kind of broke her a little bit, like, as the character, hopefully not Heather, but, like, like it's a breaking point. But I do think that, like, there's just not enough of them to act at that point, so that it, like, really did feel like they're, like, real fragile people in that scenario. And I mean, like, to me, that's, like, one of my favorite character moments of the whole movie.
Well, I'll tell you what, the movie itself is amazing. You guys did a fantastic job on that. Like I said, I watched it again last night. I think it really holds up still to this day. And my hat's off to all of you. I think y'all did a great job with this one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm trying to think what other questions we might have. Oh, I know one. Hopefully we can, this could be interesting. So, Ben, we talk a lot on this show about Hollywood
Mhm.
and about the writing that's going on
Mm.
in Hollywood. You as a director, producer, you've done it all. Where do you think we are in Hollywood? Because I know, Bob and I talk every day, multiple times a day about the writing. When you have, we've been watching The Penguin, the three of
Yeah.
us, and love it. The writing is amazing. And then we get a show like Agatha from Marvel that it just struggles. And we're just like, what is going on here? What is your take on all of it, on how Hollywood is doing in terms of writing, in terms of their hiring practices, what they want to do? What's your opinion on that all?
Well, I think we're I don't even think it can be argued that we're like the bubble just burst. The streaming bubble just popped. And streaming kind of artificially create, like, there were like 600, I'm not exaggerating, there were like 600 TV series being shot every year.
Yeah.
And now we're at about half of that. So it's stretching, the pool of writers, the pool of showrunners, the pool of directors, the pool of actors, the people who are really good at this stuff. It's stretching them thin, and the streamers, and Disney Plus is an offender, because I actually haven't seen Agatha yet. I keep meaning to. I loved WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was really good, but
Bobby.
yeah, I was into it, but
Okay, I did like WandaVision. Josh will tell you that. I did like WandaVision. Agatha,
I haven't seen Agatha yet, but
I watched a few episodes in that, and then I couldn't anymore. I just
well, it's like, The Mandalorian like blew my mind, and I was super excited, and then like each successive Star Wars series except Andor was kind of a disappointment.
Big
Yeah.
time. Oh,
Some more than others. But
Yeah.
it's like, as someone who grew up, like, I'm the exact age, like I was probably 7 or 8 when the first Star Wars movie came out. And it's one of my earliest memories was my dad taking me to see Star Wars. And well, it's obviously not one of my earliest memories, one of my earliest movie going memories. I didn't start remembering things when I was 8, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of stems from Netflix, and I feel like Netflix kind of distorted the whole industry a little bit by saying, like, we're just going to make like a Gatling gun of TV shows and movies and shoot them at your face as fast as we can. And the quality is going to be feature film level. It's going to be like the TV shows are going to be HBO quality shows. And, when you think about like the early HBO stuff, the early Netflix stuff, Orange is the New Black or House of Cards, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of like really high quality HBO level series that they were making. And, and they were doing the thing where they dumped them all at once to encourage people to binge, blah, blah, blah. And no one questioned whether that was a good practice. They just all started kind of falling in line to one degree or another and doing the same thing. And it inflated this bubble, and a lot of people got into the business. And, I have talked to people who say this is the worst they've ever seen it. And maybe it is, people who've been around longer than I have. To me, this kind of reminds me of 2008. 2007, 2008, when the recession hit. But like there were a few things that happened then, and I can speak from personal experience because that's when I finally got my first feature as director off the ground, and also my my most recent feature as director, the horribly titled Alien Raiders. I hate that title a lot. It was not called Alien Raiders when I was making it. But like that was made for the DVD market, right? And the DVD market, anyone who worked at the studios would tell you at the time. And when I say this, you're going to be like, that's an absurd business model. But this was the model. Take a bunch of movies that no one's ever heard of and put them in Target and Walmart and whatnot and Best Buy. And people will go to they're at Target buying dog food, and they see a movie they've never heard of, starring no one they've ever heard of, and be like, oh, here, take my $20. I'm going to take this DVD home and watch it. Like, I'm going to own this forever. And it's a lousy model. And, also like Blockbuster Video was still a thing. So they would sell, there were so many Blockbuster Videos in the country, and each one would buy, 10 copies of any new release, even movies that were in the straight to DVD world. And right around that time, two or three things happened that, it's like, this is my point of view. I've heard people argue the opposite as well. But right around that time, YouTube shows up in 2005. So it's only like 3 or 4 years before my movie comes out, and it's really hitting a stride then. But also piracy just became super mainstream. Nobody gave a crap. So my movie came out in Japan a month before it came out in America. And the day it came out, it was on all the BitTorrent sites. One person buys the DVD, they would rip it with a utility like Handbrake, and they would stick it on BitTorrent. And so if you were the kind of person who was inclined to do that, which I never was, but I'll admit to being someone who was really excited about Napster in the early days.
Yeah.
Like the file sharing people. So like as soon as like it just tore the ability of movies like that to make their money back. So Alien Raiders was made for $2.25 million, and they're expecting that they're going to do that Walmart Target model I just described. And it's like, yeah, the very same people who that movie is aimed at age wise are exactly the same people who would pirate it demographically, are most likely to know how to do it and would have no hangups about doing it. And I would meet people in the business who are using BitTorrent. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, do you realize you're supporting a system that will destroy your business? And they're like, hey, yeah, it's me. I'm destroying the business by myself. I'm just like, no, it's everybody. Like it's because, like when you get down to the brass tacks of the law, like if you have something on your computer, it's illegal for anyone to search your computer to see if you've got it, but it was illegal to have. And, but like, when my movie showed up on those piracy sites, I reached out to Warner Brothers, who released it, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm like, really? Nothing? There's no cease and desist, nothing. And they didn't even try. And so, like it kind of murdered that strata of movies. I feel like we're in a moment like that, where there's like a lot of people who are working in streaming, and, the studios and stuff to a certain degree blame the strikes, but I have a hard time believing that actors and writers are the real cost drivers here. Like if you're making a series like Agatha All Along or something like that, like it's just an expensive show to make. You're not paying the bulk of it to the writers and the actors. But what did happen was interest rates went up when interest rates had been like basically almost nothing for so long. Yeah. And all of these streamers were basically getting free money to make this stuff with. And they were also on a growth kick. They were not on a profit kick. So what happened was interest rates went up. And then around that time, their investors said, hey, now that you've grown, we'd like to get money. And so they all had to hit the brakes kind of all at once. And I think it sucks because, it makes it harder for everyone to work. And a lot of great people are out of work. But I feel like that's where we're at right now. I think that you're not going to see as risky a bunch of shows in the next few years, because they're moving more back towards like a network television mentality where everything has to be everything to everyone, So
are you saying they're giving so much stuff on streaming that in a way it's compromising the writing, and that's why we're getting
well, I mean, how many I do think that like within just the span of a few years, the need for network level writers went through the roof, and there weren't as many people who were like ready to be network level TV writers. I mean, it wasn't like a gradual ramp up. It was like over the course of a handful of years. I don't have the exact statistics in front of me, but like I wouldn't be surprised to find out that we doubled the number of TV series, and not movies quite so much, but TV series that were being made. Movies are in a different weird quandary because I think the pandemic trained everyone not to go to the theater.
Right.
And we're willing to go. I mean, like, you'll see it with Beetlejuice or obviously Barbenheimer. Like people will show up. But I feel like, people complain that movies are too expensive. And I'm like, name one thing you can do not at your house that's cheaper than going to a movie. Like go to a bar, you're going to spend more money than a movie ticket. Go to a live music show, you're going to spend more money. Like there's kind of nothing worth doing that's cheaper. And movies are, I mean, I don't know. I love going to movies in the theater.
Me too.
And maybe Gen Zers aren't going to be as excited about going to see movies in the theater, and it's going to kill the theatrical experience over time. I hope not, but there might be a contraction in the theater world. Like we might have too many movie theaters, and we might be about to see a bunch of them close.
I hope not.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah. But I mean, I don't think it goes away. I just think that, there's a multiplex boom in the 90s that maybe is going to be corrected for now. But also, like, I mean, like during the pandemic, like, no one was going to the movies. And then it was like slowly people were trickling back into the movies. And even like when Christopher Nolan wanted people to go see Tenet in the theater and was all mad that they made it available on streaming before he wished they would. It's like, hey, you psychopath, nobody wants to go get COVID because they watched Tenet. Man, that would be the lamest way to die. Like, oh yeah, I died so I could see Tenet.
You know what? I did go see Tenet in the theaters. Me and my son, we were like the only two people in the theater. Yeah. And so, I mean, we went, I kid you not, we were the only two in the theater because nobody else wanted to go. And my son was just like, let's go see it. And I kind of wanted to go see it because I like Christopher Nolan's work.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, you know what? Let's go do it. We'll wear our masks. We'll make sure we're away from everybody. Yeah. And we wasn't really even a problem because we were the only two there.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like I go to, I live in Sherman Oaks and I go to the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which used to be the ArcLight Sherman Oaks. And it's like
the Regal.
Yeah, it's kind of a ghost town. Like, and it's a decent theater. And
I love it.
Sometimes it's packed like Barbenheimer. I think the most I've saw anything packed is when I went to see Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter and it was jam packed, but it's not. I mean, it's like, I want us to fall in love with the theatrical experience, but because there is like a 3-4 year pause on that for a lot of people, it's almost like it has to redefine itself. Yeah. And like, I was hoping that even like the Taylor Swift concert, it's like, hopefully more concerts will go play theatrically because the Taylor Swift concert thing was a huge success. Yeah. And there are, but it's surprisingly not as many as one might have thought, like, I feel like you could do that with comedy concerts too. Like Patton Oswalt could release a concert in theaters, and yeah, it's not going to be Taylor Swift big, but it probably makes some money. I would go see something like that, and I know I'm not alone. Yeah. But it's like you have to incentivize people to go back into the theater. Although, like, hey, when I saw The Substance, it was pretty packed actually.
But like Derek and I talk about it all the time. And I mean, me, Ben. When you have a kid, it's just so hard to try to get to the theater.
Agreed.
Something you really want to see, like we've already, Moana 2, we're gonna go see. Wicked,
yeah,
we're gonna go see. Like we've already made that decision. I didn't get a chance to see Beetlejuice, and I'm like, I was bummed. I couldn't make it work. So
I kind of forced it. We took my son to see Beetlejuice, and he's 6. And partway through, my wife looked at me like, "You psychopath! Why are we taking our son?" But he'd seen the first Beetlejuice.
Oh, see, we haven't seen Charlie hasn't seen the first one. So.
Yeah, Madden likes Madden saw the first Beetlejuice when he was probably 4, and the most disturbing thing for him, it was like a week of questions about bridge safety. Like that was really the.
Oh God, that's funny. That's funny.
I mean, that's what a 4-year-old would fixate on. Yeah, we took him to see. I mean, like I've never shown him a movie that seemed to disturb him, but we also I mean, Josh, on me, like there's like horror masks and stuff in my house. Like he's seen some of that. I'm not like trying to disturb him. If something freaked him out, I would get rid of it, or at least put it where he wouldn't find it. But like, we showed him Raiders of the Lost Ark and he wanted to see the face melt over and over and over and over. We showed him Jurassic Park and he wanted to see the T-Rex eat the lawyer over and over. And it's like, but we also
want to see that.
It's true. Yeah. But we prefaced it by saying like, it's all pretend, it's all made up. Like, like what you're seeing is not really happening to anyone. And so like, I think he has always understood that, that movies are not real. And in another way, like I don't know that he emotionally connects to them as much. Like I mean, I remember being that young and seeing movies and it's just like a blur of images. I'm not like paying attention to the story or the characters or the structure.
Got it.
All right.
Very cool.
Well, you two, Derek, Josh, do either of y'all have any final questions for Ben before we move into our last topic for the night?
No, but Ben, that was great, man. You were a perfect Halloween guest.
Real quick, Ben, I know Josh had mentioned it, but I know it's getting late. Are you free to move into the next topic with us, or do you need to go?
No, I can hang. I do my podcast and we're usually recording around this time. We'll do the host.
Okay, sounds good. Just wanted to make sure. So what we've been doing on here, Ben, is we've actually been taking a look back at some films that we kind of considered underrated, and it was kind of fun going back and looking back at some of these older films. We looked at The Mask of Zorro, we looked at Face Off, and we looked at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Well, we got to talking about action movies that we had liked in the 80s and 90s, and so we've got the idea to watch some action movies, and we're going to call this segment Dad's Action Movies, and we're going to start off with Commando.
Nice.
So we're starting off with Commando. This is a movie that came out in 1985, and it's starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the best way I can describe this movie is this is a terrible movie that I happen to love every single moment of it. It is, I don't know. This is like perfect description of like an 80s action movie or something. You know, it just, to me, it's, I love almost everything about this movie. And Josh had never seen it. So we wanted to go ahead and take a look at that. And since Josh, you had never seen it, what did you think of Commando?
Oh my God. I texted you both and I said, it is so bad, but it's great. I mean, it is the stuff that went on in this movie from the time you see Arnold, you know, carrying the big log and then jumping off the plane and not breaking his legs, just jumps in the water, gets out, runs around, and then you got him in his little Speedo going through. And by the way, Ben, they were at the old Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Oh, nice.
Because I showed them, I said, was this our mall? She's like, yeah, it's before when it was kind of like an outdoor type of
yeah, it's same mall as Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
You know, they use that same mall in Terminator 2 also.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
And I also think Chopping Mall. I think Chopping Mall in the 80s. They either used that one or they might have also used Beverly Center or both.
Oh, interesting. It but yeah, that just I just don't even know. Like the ending was just like, I don't even know if we need a spoiler alert. But
no, we don't need a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Takes a pipe and throws it at the guy at Bennett, and it goes through his stomach.
And it doesn't just go through his stomach. I mean, it goes through his stomach and through the steel that's behind it, because that's how all the steam is coming out.
And then he's like, I thought I was the last one you were going to kill. I lied.
That's David Patrick Kelly, who's in Catchers.
That's him. Yes.
Yeah, same guy.
God.
The one who played Sully?
That's great.
Yeah, the one who played Sully.
How about that?
And then the lady
But when he kills him, he's sitting there holding him over that cliff. He's like, "This is my Wacom."
Oh my God. And then the lady, she sits there and hugs his little girl, Jennifer. They've never met. It's like they're old buddies. It just makes no sense. And then he takes the phone booth and picks it up. And oh my God. It's the weirdest, funnest, horrible movie. I tell these guys, Ben, for some reason, I get in bed after a long day. I'll start watching something. I fall asleep.
Same here.
I did not fall asleep on this one. Like it just was so unique. So anyway,
I often wonder, Shakespeare was 500 years ago, basically, right? And we're still producing Shakespeare plays, but you lose sort of the perspective of what it meant culturally to Shakespeare's time. And so it means something now. So I always wonder what it will be like in 500 years time from now, when the English language isn't the same and we don't judge actors the same or whatever, to show them something like Commando. Like, what will they, will they know the difference between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ben Kingsley? Like, well, it's basically the same thing, right?
I never thought I'd hear Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, that was a first. That's great.
Well, but seriously, like, if you take out all the cultural touchstones that we all have, you know, even in 50 years, like when you watch a movie that's 50 or 100, like we have movies that are 100 years old now, and you know, you watch them, it's like it's an echo of our culture, or we're an echo of their culture, but it's not the same. You watch like an old Buster Keaton thing or something like that. Well, you know, like again, like go 500 years in the future when, you know, we're all, you know, hovering to work and you know, whatever, and watch, you know, watch Commando, watch Predator. Like, what will you think of it? And you know, like, what will you see a substantial difference between that and another, you know, Amadeus or something, where it's like something that could not be any more different by our standards, but you know, in half a millennium, like what will it look like? Well, Schwarzenegger, he wasn't a good actor back then, but he wasn't. There was definitely something very watchable about him. There's always that actor who's like not that good, but kind of watchable. Like Van Damme was one. At one time, I would have said that of Keanu Reeves, although I think he's grown into himself and he's actually really good now. But yeah, I mean, like that movie is, I mean, it's fun. I mean, all those, like Stallone made a movie around the same time called Cobra that's just as hokey.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yes. Cobra's that's another fun one.
Yeah.
That one, Tango and Cash, great movie.
Tango Cash, yeah.
Yep.
Now, you know, just some of the things that they do in this film. It's only there so Arnold could show his muscles or what, you know, like you mentioned, Josh, where he's carrying around the tree. I mean, he's walking around carrying this tree around for no reason other. I mean, we could have just seen him chopping wood, but no, it's an excuse so we can see him flexing, you know, and show how strong he is. And I mean, just the things they do in this movie, and it's definitely a product of its time. What say you, Derek, on this one?
So you guys just mentioned a very good point. There's a list of movies that I hold very sacred that are just terrible, but there's something about them that will never leave my heart. They're just going to stay with me. Like we were just talking about Cobra, that's tremendous. Roadhouse, I think, makes that list. You know, even like Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, I would not call that terrible.
No, it's awesome. That's just it. I love that movie to death.
Yeah,
I would not trade it for anything. But
Big Trouble in Little China is like one of the best John Carpenter movies ever made. It's so good.
Ben, I fully agree. But my wife caught me watching that when I was working, like just doing some administrivia, and I wanted to put something on while I worked through it. And she said, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life."
Oh,
and I said,
"I didn't see Commando yet."
What you speak.
Yeah.
Stay out of it.
I think you could draw a straight line from Big Trouble in Little China to The Matrix. Like it's the first movie that ever like feels like live action anime.
Yeah. No, it's tremendous. You guys have seen that, right?
Yeah.
I do not think I've seen it.
It has been so long since I've seen it, but I've seen it.
You should both go. Why are you doing this when you could be watching Big Trouble in Little China?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Well, maybe that's the next homework assignment right there.
I think it is.
There you go.
That's not acceptable behavior.
No, I remember I really liked it. It's just been forever since I've seen it. I could use a rewatch of it.
It's so good.
It's
and then
Primo, Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall. Yeah,
well, maybe I have seen it.
It's so good.
It's been. I'm sure it's been a while, but if you go back and watch that, you will just be thrilled.
John Carpenter has a run that starts in the 70s with Assault on Precinct 13, and then of course Halloween, and it ends in the late 80s with They Live. And it's almost
he did Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah. It's almost, he did The Fog, he did Escape from New York. He did Christine, he did Starman. He did like all of these amazing movies. A movie that nobody but me loves, but Prince of Darkness. I can't get enough of that movie. And he made all. And then They Live, I think, is like the last one. And then he only made one movie that really people responded to after that, and that was In the Mouth of Madness. But like the 90s were all like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Vampires, Village of the Damned.
Yeah.
Ghosts of Mars, yada yada. I'm sorry, I'm taking us way off of Commando.
No.
In short, Big Trouble in Little China is like right smack. It's like at the 2/3 point of John Carpenter's unbroken awesome streak, and it is just solid, awesome from beginning to end. And it's also like one of the best Kurt Russell performances. I mean, Kurt Russell did, I think, 3 of his best performances for John Carpenter, and that's MacReady in The Thing and Snake Plissken in Escape from New York, and then Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China.
I gotta say Jack Burton takes the cake for me. That's number one. Although Snake is great. I'm not gonna take anything away from Snake. But
well, and MacReady in The Thing. The thing is just like, one of the best movies ever made. So yeah.
How about Masters of the Universe?
See, that's another bad movie that I like it. I like it.
So anyway, but back to the point though, is that, I mean, I have all these movies. One of them is The Running Man. That's in there.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's good.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. And for no matter how much of a cheesy or awful thing it is, there's just some movies that are near and dear to my heart. And I had forgotten about Commando. It fell off my radar, but I'm so glad I revisited it. It's just hilarious and fun and a good time. And it takes you back to when you were a kid again.
Jesse, where are you? Where are you?
Don't disturb the guy next to me. He's dead tired.
He's dead tired.
And people tend to forget just how much of a king Arnold was back in his day.
Oh God!
I mean, he was royalty at a very long point within film, and this was just a fresh reminder of it. So I can't say enough good things about Commando, and there's a lot of good co-stars in it too. Like I forgot all about oh God, what's his name? Vernon. It's the guy, the enemy of him, the villain in it.
Oh,
you mean the one who plays the general, right?
Yes. Vernon Wells, is that his name?
Clueless.
Oh, Vernon Wells, like from the Road Warrior.
Yeah, Mad Max. That's right. Yeah. So he was the villain in it, and he's tremendous. He's fantastic. Shout out to Alyssa Milano. Got to give her a nod.
Little girl Alyssa Milano.
Yep.
What's the name of the actor who plays Bennett?
No idea.
Because I thought he was pretty good, but it's funny because he's supposed to be like the opposite, or like the shouldn't say the opposite. He's supposed to be the evil version of Arnold. You know that?
Oh yeah, that's the Australian guy, right? That's Vernon Wells.
That's Vernon Wells. Yeah.
Okay, so he looks nothing like Arnold. You know, and he's supposed to be just the strong, justice.
Hey, at least he got electrocuted and survived with ease.
That's so good. That's God, when he gets electrocuted, that's maybe my favorite thing in life.
Bring it on.
But I'm watching this guy walk around, and you got Arnold, who's got, 6-pack, and he's got muscles that are, bigger than tree trunks, and then you got this guy, and I'm like, they might as well have just casted me. Because I'm like,
he looks like a middle school basketball coach.
I'm just like, yeah, but he's good. But
he is.
I just love the way, the president is like, he's like, I brought all these men here, and he's like, oh, me and Matrix, we could kill them all, we could just like that, So he was great, but like you said, Josh, he gets electrocuted at one point, and he comes back stronger.
Yeah.
No sense.
It's so good.
Oh, it makes no sense.
What do you think of Commando, Ben?
I haven't seen it in years, but I love it. I mean, like, to me, that's like comfort food, movies like that, or Cobra, Tango and Cash, all the Schwarzenegger stuff from that era. I mean, to me, the king of those movies is Predator. Predator's
Predator's awesome.
We should watch
Predator's great.
Yeah, it's
so
objectively a great movie, and really holds up. I mean, holds up so well that they just made that movie Prey a couple years ago for Hulu.
That's right.
And they got a sequel coming out to that too.
And they should have released Prey in theaters. It was so good, and it just shows the malleability of that concept. But also, Predator was one of the few movies where I felt like they weren't trying to make Schwarzenegger in anything he wasn't. And Commando, I guess, to a degree, is that, like, movies like The Terminator, Commando, Conan the Barbarian, like, they're leaning into Schwarzenegger because he's in the 80s, when most of our stars are kind of white bread Americans, and Harrison Ford was an action star. Schwarzenegger was like a guy with a really thick accent and wasn't the world's greatest actor, but looked great on camera and was willing to do all this stuff and became a great actor. You know, if you watch his comedies like Twins and stuff, you realize like actually he's great. And, you know, or even like Total Recall, which it's like my only complaint with Total Recall is like, why are you making him play a guy named Douglas Quaid? Why don't you have him play, you know, like, you know, Lars Wiener Schnitzel? Because he's obviously not American. He's not American. And I actually had a film professor who was from the exact same part of Austria and talked exactly like him. It was really weird. But no, I mean, Commando's awesome. I mean, like, and I feel like it's those kinds of movies were ripped off a million times, but they were kind of original back then. I remember, you know, my dad taking me to see those movies when I was a kid. And it was something we could both get into the abject, horrific violence of in equal ways.
And I mean, it was just so over the top violence, you know. And like you said, Josh, a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. But you still you just shut your brain off and you enjoy it. Like you got Schwarzenegger running around; he's literally taking out an entire army by himself. You know, there's no possible way that this could happen. I mean, like he's out there in the middle of an open area and he's sitting there mowing everybody down who they can't hit him to save their lives. They shoot worse than a stormtrooper, and yet. And you know, and they're just sitting there shooting, and they can't hit him. And then he's just mowing them all down. At one point, he shoots this one guy with a shot, and he takes out two of them. I'm just like,
I wonder to a degree, like how much of a side effect this is of the arms race between Schwarzenegger and Stallone that was going on, because they were constantly trying to one up each other. And this definitely feels like Rambo. This is like his version of Rambo.
Yes.
And you know, it's funny that you say that because I actually looked it up. First Blood Part 2 actually came out in 1985 also. Yeah. So I don't know which one released first, but
they were constantly trying to one up each other. They were both like total monster steroid rage beefcake guys. And they were both making movies just like this, one after the other. And as audiences, we were eating it up, but like, you'll see interviews today with either one of them and they'll say, there was a rivalry. And even like Schwarzenegger once copped to convincing Stallone to do "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot." I think was the one he got him to do.
I love that movie.
By pretending he was interested in it. Yeah. And Stallone like scooped him.
Stop and my mom will shoot.
You know, it's funny because you talk about comfort food, and some of their movies that are considered not as good. You know, they each have a couple here and there that I just happen to like. Like Stallone, you mentioned "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot." The one I really like from him that I know a lot of people don't like, I like Oscar. I don't know why. I just really like it.
It was not good.
I don't remember anything about it.
You know, Oscar was actually a stage play from my understanding. And so the movie very much is set up kind of like that. And so when I found out that it was a stage, or it's based on a stage play, I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense why it's set up the way that it is. But it's all about this. Stallone plays this gangster that he's trying to go straight. He made a promise to his father that he would go straight, but every single thing that you could think of that would go wrong in his personal life is going wrong. Like he finds out that his daughter is pregnant, and this is the 1920s. You know, finds out that his bank accountant is stealing money from him, and everything that could go wrong is going wrong. And so the whole time he's trying to go straight, but yet he keeps wanting to shoot somebody because of what's going on. So yeah, it's not really considered one of his best, and I understand why. I just, for some reason, I happen to like it a lot.
I mean, nothing wrong with liking things, and you know, I mean, like the whole industry was kind of like balancing on the back of people like this for that period of time. And you know, when you talk about like where we're at today, it's like we don't have that exactly now. I mean, I guess we have Keanu Reeves and John Wick kind of stuff, but you know, like
now.
But like we don't get like 4 John Wicks a year, but you would get, you know, 4 movies like that. And then, you know, again, it leads into people like Van Damme who are actually really good, or people like Steven Seagal who actively sucked. But
I loved Out for Justice and Mark for Death.
Oh God. All I remember about him is just how weird he runs. He runs so weird.
Now I gotta watch those movies. I don't care.
Oh, yeah. There's so many good ones, especially during that time. That just and yeah, the Van Damme movies. There's a lot of good ones there. The Stallone, the Schwarzenegger, it's like all of them.
Yeah, there were guys that tried to compete on that level too. Like Wesley Snipes was always trying to get there, and he did some good ones too. Don't get it twisted.
Totally. Passenger
they were just there was
stuff, yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
great movie.
But there really only is one Arnold and one Sly. That's it. They were kind of the kings, and everybody else was trying to follow that beat. Then he got close, but we know who the two big players were. We knew who they were.
Yeah.
No more complaining. No more Mr. Kimball have to go to the bathroom. There is no bathroom.
There is no bathroom.
Man, as a father now, I so feel Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, right.
No,
my wife used to teach kindergarten, and she's like, "Yep, all that's real, all of it."
That's a great movie too. I love when he's getting ready to go to be the kindergarten teacher, and he's like, "What was it?" He says, "They're only 5-year-olds. What could be the problem?" And then you see him come back. And he just like passes out of the bed, and he's like, "They're horrible."
Horrible.
Right? Well, it's like right when he's about to fall on the bed. That look he has. Oh my God, I relate. I relate to that on so many levels. It's so good. That's great.
Yeah.
So good.
So Commando, that it's a fun movie. It was definitely worth going back and watching. It is ridiculous. It's over the top, but I guess, but we all agree it is a lot of fun.
It is great.
Well, Ben, we definitely want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Anytime.
Is there anything that you want to plug? Anything you got coming up, or anything like that?
I mean, I nothing I have immediately coming up, but given that it's spooky season, if you would like to listen to Video Palace, check that out. Like wherever you're listening to this podcast, Video Palace is there, probably, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, and it's totally free. And if you have Audible, check out Catchers, which is, I don't know, they're both labors of love. If not, we did get paid, but not handsomely, but they're both labors of love, and it's a lot of fun. Audio is a fun world to work in that way.
All right.
And you can check out my website, benrock.com. Pretty easy to figure that out.
All right. We'll make sure that we put your website in the description below, so that way people can check it out and see what you got going on over there.
Sorry about my webcam again.
No, it's okay. It's not a problem at all. Josh, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. I'm the family man of the Valley. I'm a realtor here in Southern California.
All right, Derek, where are you at this week?
Where all the old people still are, LinkedIn and Facebook.
And you can find me over on my YouTube channel, Was It Good, at Bob Loves Movies. It's easier just to search Bob Loves Movies. And you can also find me on X and Criticalist. As always, we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Once again, Ben, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And taking the time to visit with us. For everybody out there, we hope you all have a safe Halloween and you all have a great night.
Happy Halloween. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.